All right, everybody. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, and Steve is in the picture. Hello, everybody. It's Steve with Real Progressives. Tonight's broadcast is going to be directly associated with an article in the Atlantic. I'm going to read it to you, and then Ellis and I are going to take some time to do a deep dive into the the perspective of the Austerian and the perspective of the Ayn Rand Club, the folks, the makers and takers, and the Calvinists that measure people based on their value, based on their capitalist view of society in terms of, you know, everybody's only worth what their paycheck is and they're only worth what they do, etc. So without further ado, let me bring on Ellis. Ellis, sir, how are you today?
Tired. My knees still hurt.
Well, that's what you get for being on your knees for the man.
look at, you know, I still haven't even got the house put back together. I got wood on the floor, though. All right?
So you laid some wood, huh? You laid
Yeah.
All right. So real quickly, before we get into this, I just want to say you were missed big time last go round, and everybody was like, "Where's Ellis? Where's Ellis?" And you got a little bit of your housekeeping done, some floors done, some walls painted, etc. And now you're back in black.
Well, so far, not completely done. Still got some more stuff to do, but yeah, at least the wood floor is in there. So now I got to put all the furniture back. Still got some other stuff going on, so I can't put everything back. So I got the camera turned this way. So you can't see that part.
Well, let me just jump straight to it because I want to read this article, and hopefully my voice doesn't grate anyone's nerves, but at least I'll have a really awesome picture to look at while we do it. So this article that we're about to read is quite frankly, this is the kind of article that if it doesn't make your blood boil, you haven't been paying attention. So without further ado, let me go ahead and add up our friend here. Our friend is going to be the moniker or the the mascot for tonight's live stream. So without further ado, let me go ahead and just jump into this article here, and I'll give you all the link so that you know what you're reading, but this is in the Atlantic, and it's titled, "The People Left Behind When Only the Deserving Poor Get Help. Maine attached work requirements and time limits to its safety net, intensifying poverty in the state." This is by a journalist named Ann Lowry.
Yeah, we should say that the article is actually quite a good article.
Absolutely.
But, you know, like all mainstream articles, it does miss the overall point. But still, it does make the point in itself. It's a very good article.
Yeah, and I'm going to add that to the, right now, directly into the comment field. And hopefully, folks, when they look at this, will be able to read along and just understand how bad this is. So, Orlando, Maine. In the eyes of the state of Maine, Laurie Kane is an able-bodied adult without dependents and thus ineligible for most forms of government support. In her own eyes, it's hard to see how she's going to find housing, work, and stability without help. Kane is struggling to put her life back together amid a spell of homelessness that has lasted 3 years. She has a severe anxiety condition along with other health problems and had suffered a panic attack on the day I met her. But she had not managed to sign up for MaineCare, the state's Medicaid program, because she cannot get to the doctor to certify her as being disabled. That's not because the doctor has evaluated her and found her to be fine, but because she's been unable to get a doctor's appointment. I was denied MaineCare because I'm considered an able-bodied person, she told me. A lot of people, well, you can just get free care, they say. You go to a clinic with a sliding fee scale, which would be $20 a visit. But what if I can't come up with $20? She was also struggling with the state's newly instated requirements that recipients and food stamps, formerly known as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, work for 20 hours a week or volunteer for 24 hours a month. She rarely leaves her room at the homeless shelter, she said, because it makes her so anxious. Even filling out the paperwork, sending it in to certify her shifts at a soup kitchen seemed like a lot. I'm very worried about losing my food stamps, she told me. With no cash income, no savings, no home, no health coverage, no car, and no treatment for her medical conditions, finding steady work seemed impossible. How would she get a job if this depressed rural part of the state? What about her panic attacks? If she lost her spot at the shelter, how would she get to a volunteer gig? Kane is one of tens of thousands of Mainers affected by sweeping changes made by the state's anti-poverty programs by the state's Republican governor, Paul LePage. His administration has tightened eligibility for Medicaid, food stamps, and welfare, and hopes to do yet more, adding work requirements to Medicaid, removing young adults from public health coverage, and eliminating the state's general assistance funds for the indigent. The broad aim of these reforms is to create a safety net that provides help for the disabled, elderly, and children, but prompts able-bodied adults to help themselves.
That's a fucking lie.
Exactly.
That's a fucking lie. This is a bunch of Tudor England Calvinistic bullshit. That's all it is.
He said, it goes on, it is this idea that all welfare should be workfare, said Michael Hilliard, an economist at the University of Southern Maine. In implementing these changes, Maine has become a bellwether. A number of other states are copying the state's reforms or devising similar ones of their own, with numerous states mulling attaching work, volunteering, and job training requirements to safety net programs. At the federal level, Speaker Paul Ryan has vowed to remake the safety net to emphasize employment, with the very first plank of his anti-poverty program to expect work-capable adults to work or prepare for work in exchange for welfare benefits. For its part, the Trump administration, its new budget proposal, suggests deep cuts to the programs that help a range of vulnerable groups, including seniors, low-income children, single parents, rural poor, and the disabled. It also has repeatedly emphasized the need to save taxpayer fucking money and discourage what it thinks of as welfare dependency. Folks, this is Steve. If you don't get why we say taxes don't fund spending, you are a part of the problem. This right here is exactly why we say it. If it rubs you the wrong way, you are literally part of the problem. You're literally harming human beings. You're killing people. By extension, you're a murderer by proxy. So it also has repeatedly emphasized the need to save taxpayer money and discourage what it thinks of as welfare dependency, including by extending work requirements to housing programs and increasing them for food stamps, among other initiatives. Ben Carson, the Secretary of the Department of Housing and Urban Development, recently told the New York Times, we have some people who are mentally ill. We have some elderly and disabled people, but there is another group of people who are able-bodied individuals, and I think we do those people a great disservice when we simply maintain them. And you know, quite frankly, Ellis, I mean, you look at this, I'm not even done yet, but I just wanted to take a moment and just say, this is the shit that should make everybody crazy. So anyway, in an opinion piece released with the White House budget proposal, Mick Mulvaney, Trump's budget director, went yet further. Under President Trump's leadership, we're now looking at how we can respect both of those who require assistance and the taxpayers who fund that support, he wrote. For the first time, folks, this is, again, they're playing the fucking mantra over and over and over again about taxpayer dollars. And when you think that way, all of a sudden you feel possessive of it and you want to keep your own because you think your taxes are paying for it. And you are killing people, killing them, goddamn killing them. And he said, for the first time in a long time, we're putting taxpayers first. Taking money from someone without an intention to pay it back is not debt, it's theft. Jesus Christ, these people are morons. And those of you who keep saying taxes fund spending are literally as bad as Donald Trump. Get it through your head, you're just as bad. If you believe that tax dollars at the federal level fund these things, you believe it's theft, you are literally a murderer, just like Donald fucking Trump. This budget makes it clear that we will reverse this larceny. I am not even joking. The point is to separate out the deserving from the undeserving poor, a concept that has its roots in Tudor England, where local parishes were instructed to punish and even execute the idle. Where the federal government is now going, Maine has led the way. The state's experience shows that policies that ask for more in exchange for aid, work requirements, time limits, asset tests, and so on, do slash social spending and encourage some low-income adults to find a shitty-ass job, or find a job more quickly. But they also,
correct, isn't it?
Exactly. They also leave many individuals and families in extreme poverty without anywhere to turn. Folks, Jesus, God, when are you going to care about economics? Do you have to see people literally laying in the street with Soylent Green for you to get out of your own head and freaking care? Anyway, Paul LePage, a crass and pugnacious Tea Party favorite, won Maine's 2010 gubernatorial race by taking 38% of the vote in a 5-way contest.
That's the problem.
It's disgusting, right? His administration soon undertook dramatic safety net reforms with the twin aims of balancing the state budget. Now, mind you, folks, let me just be frank. The state budget is constrained to taxation and other investments. So let's be fair here. We're not talking about the federal government. This is a state-based problem. And the state's funding is largely curtailed by the federal government's short-sighted nature in cutting spending as well. Being ignorant, dull as spoons, worthless as tips on a bowl, whatever you want to call it, the same people that would advocate that their taxes, their hard-earned tax dollars are paying for things. We got to cut this, we got to cut that to find money to pay for things. You are the blame here. Absolutely 1,000%. Look in the mirror, say, I own this, I've killed people, I've got to never do it again. Let me get excited. Let me activate and educate people that this is not true. Anyway, moving on. I'm going to read this part again. Paul LePage, a crass and pugnacious Tea Party favorite, won Maine's 2010 gubernatorial race by taking 38% of the vote in a 5-way contest. His administration soon undertook a dramatic safety net reforms with the twin aims of balancing the state budget and cutting back on aid for healthy adults. Maine's welfare program is cannibalizing the rest of the state government. The governor said at the 2012 Republican convention, to a standing O, to all you able-bodied people out there, get off the couch and get yourself a fucking job.
Fuck
you.
You
didn't say fucking right. Exactly. What a
fuck you.
Exactly.
Fuck you. Fuck you.
The issue.
No, see, that's the worst line in this, and it's not the author's fault. This is
not
the most disgusting line in this article right there, because the fact remains is that there are no satisfactory jobs available, and it's got nothing to do with the state of Maine. It's got everything to do with the federal government's deficit. It's too small. And, you know, we'll get into that. But the reason why I gave a hearty fuck you to that worthless piece of shit that's a governor, well, calls himself a governor, the shoe shiner, all right? The reason why is because he's full of shit. And you might as well keep reading, because it's just going to become, I'm just going to become a vulgarian at this point.
It's all good. So I'm going to sit there and literally hope that people start paying attention to this stuff, because quite frankly, you know, it's ridiculous that we have to even deal with this. at this point in time, because people should have heard by now, they should know by now that this is not even remotely okay. So I'm going to put this thing up here about being a murderer by proxy while we read the rest of this here for a second, because I want folks to see the tie-in. So the issue is has been not just principled, but personal for the governor. One of 18 children growing up in an impoverished and abusive family, LePage left home at the age of 11 to escape domestic violence and lived on the streets of Lewiston for 2 years, making a meager living shining shoes. An account of his early life written for a conservative political action conference reads, at age 13, I love this.
At age 13, he walked 8 miles to school and killed a bear with his loose-leaf notebook.
That's right. At age 13, two families jointly adopted Governor LePage. Eddie and Pauline Collins kept him busy washing dishes at the Theriol's Cafe. In other words, they were doing child labor. They could be proud of that. Bruce and Joan Merrick kept him busy hauling boxes. Bruce was a Pepsi Cola truck driver. Later, the governor worked at the Antoine Rubber Company and a meat packing company. Others should do as he did, LePage argued, deal with their hardships and find a way to rise. To that end, as every other state in New England accepted federal money to provide health coverage to low-income adults, Maine not only rejected the ACA's Medicaid expansion, but tightened its eligibility standards, rescinding coverage for thousands and thousands of adults. It reinstated work requirements for able-bodied adults without dependent receiving food stamps. It added an asset test to both food stamp and welfare programs. The administration said the policy was meant to disqualify people who own things like boats and jet skis, but having a second car or truck, a lot for wood harvesting, or a retirement savings account counted too.
Not only that, Stephen, but you know what else also counts as an asset that could get you denied food stamps?
What's that?
Having a bank account that has money in it that you've been saving up from your low-wage part-time job, all right, so that you could get an apartment because you're homeless.
Jesus
if you
God.
have money in that savings account in Maine, and you have to report this now, and they see it, oh, you've got that kind of money. Oh, well, you won't qualify for full food stamp benefits. Oh, I'm fucking homeless. I'm getting an apartment. I say, well, I'm very sorry, lad. Fuck you. I mean, seriously. You'll read that right through the article in there. It's in the article somewhere.
Well, let's go ahead and get back to this douche nozzle here for a second. Mr. Man that carried a bag of ice up 50 flights of stairs here.
Yeah.
So these reforms, along with a number of other changes, drastically reduced the amount of money the state spent on safety net programs, as well as the number of people helped. Maine dropped health coverage for an estimated 14,500 parents, 10,000 childless adults, with Medicaid enrollment declining by more than 70,000 over time. The food stamp program shrank by more than 20%. The number of able-bodied adults without dependence on food stamps plummeted by more than 80%. The welfare program halved in size. This is the shit these frickin' Randian Calvinists friggin' celebrate. They sit there in the dark recesses of their basement fapping over how many people they've killed. The LePage administration, as well as a host of right-of-center think tanks, news outlets, and national-level politicians, declared the changes a success, arguing that they not only reduced the costs of Maine's taxpayers, but resulted in higher rates of employment and even higher wages for the affected households.
That's disingenuous.
Oh, yes. We refuse to define success by ever-increasing caseloads on welfare programs that have been trapping people in poverty. Mary Mayhew, the director of Maine's Health and Human Services Department, told me, we talk about the American dream, but have designed welfare programs that have trapped people in a nightmare of poverty. Our focus was not to evaluate individuals through the lens of their poverty or their current circumstance, but through the lens of their potential, and to restructure these programs to be a pathway out of poverty through employment.
No.
So I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But the LePage administration cites a bevy of statistics to make its case. An analysis of state wage data found that adults that did not or could not comply with the food stamp work requirement saw their wages go up by 114%, with wages for those in compliance increasing by 20%. The Heritage Foundation hailed those results. The federal government should establish a federal work requirement on able-bodied adults without dependents receiving food stamps. That is similar to the one established in Maine. Such a nationwide policy could save taxpayers $9.7 billion a year. Folks, if you believe in tax fund spending, literally take your right hand and slap the taste out of your own mouth. I mean, it is one of the stupidest things, and there's no excuse for anyone to believe this crap anymore. There's no excuse. You're not a right-winger. You're not a teabagger. If you believe this kind of nonsense and you claim to be a progressive or a lefty, you are anathema. Anyway, as for Medicaid, Mayhew argued that the program was better targeted and more fiscally sustainable after LePage's changes. With the Medicaid program being awash in red ink with massive shortfalls every single year, you're not planning, you're not managing, she told me. We have transformed that program to one that is stable, is able to prioritize its core mission, especially related to our elderly and our disabled, our most vulnerable population. Yet poverty experts question the sunny statistics put out by LePage administration and say that what happens after Maine's reforms in 2010 seems to be roughly akin to what happened after the Federal Welfare Reform Act in 1996. Back then, Brother Bill Clinton and a bipartisan group of right-wing neoliberal pieces of shit attached strict work requirements and time limits to cash aid program, temporary aid to needy families, TANF, and the poverty rate and welfare rolls subsequently shrank. People found jobs. But a strong economy and rising wages to have been the big factors in nudging people into the workforce, rather than the absence of benefits between the beginning of 1996 and the end of 1999, the national unemployment rate dropped from 5.6 to 4%, with wages and earnings growing across the income spectrum. In that climate, it became easier and more attractive to find work. It is true that the work requirements did encourage some people to get a job or get one faster. LaDonna Pavetti of the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities told me that they did not increase the overall level of employment in the medium or long term, spurring few individuals to get a job they were not already likely to get in time. There were other consequences, and they fell hardest on those least able to deal with them. Many individuals unable or unwilling to work due to addiction issues, homelessness, health problems, domestic violence, or the simple trauma of living in extreme poverty, along with their children, ended up with no safety net at all. Welfare reform got a group of more able people into the labor market, but left behind families with more significant barriers, Pavetti said. Anyway, I can go on, and there's a lot more to this, and I'm gonna stop right now, Ellis.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna go ahead and hit on this because I think that this is one of the most important things that we can talk about, quite frankly. I guess let's start with the idea of a state budget versus a federal budget, so people even understand the environment by which we're dealing here. Can you break down the differences between the two?
A state budget runs similar to a household budget. Not exactly. Getting a little bit of an echo on. Can you hear it?
No.
Okay, well, I can hear it. Anyway, a state budget is similar to a household budget. Similar but not the same in that the state can tax and do other things to raise income, whereas a household has to go out and earn income somehow in a work-related way or hope that somebody gives it money and whatnot. Whereas the federal government is the issuer of the dollar. It spends them into existence every time it spends. Okay, this is what we call an issuer. And the state of Maine is a currency user, just like Steve Grumbine or everybody else watching this broadcast. And so when it comes to budgets, the state of Maine has a budget. It has to budget. When it comes to the federal budget, the word budget is a misnomer. It's really a fiscal agenda. That's what that is. The federal government sets the agenda for the entire nation, the macroeconomic agenda, when it decides on what we call a budget, when it decides what it's going to fund, what it's not going to fund, and then begins spending at the beginning of the new fiscal year. It's setting the economic agenda for the entire nation. Whereas Maine, it has an actual budget because it's a currency user. It has to look at its income, and then it has to live within its means, so to speak, like a household. The federal government need not do such a thing.
So, Ellis, I guess the question comes down to is, now that we know that states and the federal government are very different from one another,
Yeah.
when we see like people celebrating, the Bill Clinton budget surplus and so forth and so on, we've talked about that ad nauseum over and over again. It really is taking money out of the system entirely. And that directly impacts states like Maine or Pennsylvania or, any Illinois, California, who's attempting to try and do a single payer, at a state level.
Yeah.
What exactly will it take in your mind to get folks to break free of the idea that it's their hard-earned tax dollars at the federal level that are funding these things, so that we can stop these lies, these myths that these states are imposing out there, and the celebration of austerity? What do you think it'll take for us to get people? Do we have to be so desperate and so despondent and see bodies laying all over the ground for them to understand this? I don't understand the disconnect.
Well, there is a certain level of desperation that's required before people will start acting. And you already have that in the US, UK, Australia. But I sometimes question, personally, in private company, whether or not the desperation level in the United States is high enough to actually want to deal with these problems. What I will say is that this taxes fund federal spending, this federal taxes fund federal spending thing, is deeply ingrained. I mean, people call that received wisdom. They call that common sense. And throughout the years that I've been doing outreach and teaching on social media, several years, I've noticed that there's one type of person. I just encountered one, even though I didn't speak to him. Someone shared a post of mine about budget surplus. And he asked a question of the person who shared it, said something to the effect of, what does this even mean? I'm trying so hard to wrap my head around the concept of money and how it works. Could you explain this to me? You see, right there is someone who's willing to take the time to ask questions. I'm really interested in what this is all about. Please help me understand. Okay. So what it's going to take is it's going to take continued outreach and education of the public. But like I said before many times, you don't need everybody. You just need the people that are interested till you reach a critical mass. Then you force the issue. You can force the issue by momentum. People that are all about, well, federal taxes fund federal spending. Well, the majority, this momentum is moving in this direction, and it's saying that federal taxes don't fund federal spending, and it's about to prove it. Okay, so you can come along, or you can get steamrolled. It's your choice. And I think really that's the only choice that we have. Economists, which would, that promote MMT, no longer, it's very rare that they argue with mainstream economists and whatnot. They take the message to the people because it's the only hope there is. I mean, changing academia is not going to do much. So, it's an educational thing. And like I've said before also, there's reason to have lots of hope, because 5 years ago, people were ignoring us. And today, I mean, people are absolutely crawling out of the woodwork attacking us, So that tells you we've made lots of progress. And so 5 years from now, this paradigm is going to change. As long as we keep doing what we're doing.
Well, I'm going to take exception to one thing here, and that is that while we're sitting here making progress, somebody did some studies the other day that talked about, I don't know if it was studies, they've read studies, they've been looking into things, and in conversation, realize that most people, they don't take more than 20 seconds to figure something out. It takes more than that, they're not interested. And that's why meme culture survives so well. And that, quite frankly, is also why folks are given to bumper stickers and they're given to these one-liners by politicians. And that's why there's still people out there that would vote for Hillary Clinton. And you think through this whole thing, I honestly, I'm watching these people that get caught up in these sexy, romantic ideas about things that have nothing to do with actually solving the problem. It's things that they moralize or they think should be, as opposed to things that could be. And so when I hear this stuff, it's like it's perfectly logical. There's not 1 ounce of miss here in MMT. And there's not an ounce of miss in understanding how our federal financing actually works. Yet the people are more romantic with ideology and stuff. And I don't know that we can have the kind of mass movement unless we freaking slam this puppy home. Because people are just so easily led astray at the campfire with the acoustic guitar, the Birkenstocks, and waxing poetic about how the U.S. is broke since 1934. And this is the left. These are the nihilists on the left. And they're really, really shooting us right between the eyes with the absolutely just dead straight refusal to be solutions oriented. They're just fist in the air crap. And people are suffering, as we experience in this article today. You have been very outspoken in terms of your disgust with the Tories and the UK and May and all the other crap going on there in Australia and all around the world, quite frankly. There is nothing new under the sun. This austerity stuff is happening all over the world. What makes you believe that we can overcome that, Ellis?
People hope. It's that simple. I have faith in people where people don't. It's not that I have faith in people that are one day are going to become so desperate and struggle so much. It's not that I'm hoping that people will get to the point where they can't take anymore and they're all dying and dropping like flies. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is I have faith in people to do the right thing when it's required. And I just, like I said, I come from a working class background. So the way it works is simple. When the man comes at you, you come at him with a bat and you say, I'm not taking it. We'll go down right now. I have faith in the people, in the masses, to stand up and fight for themselves. I just have a faith in the people. And if I give them the brickbat and others like me give them the tools to fight with, they're going to use them. And that's the only way that I can contribute, is by giving them what they need to win this fight, giving them the knowledge. And others like me are out there doing that as well. I just have faith in the working man and woman, that they will rise up before it's too late and they'll say, fuck this shit, we're all done here. And that will be the end of it, And when they hear MMT, many of them, they tell me, private message or otherwise, they tell me they're hearing a message of hope. And that's what they're searching for. And that hope will enable them. It enables them to move forward and do what needs to be done. It causes them to start focusing on what should be done instead of these stupid tweets by Trump and his tax returns. It causes them to focus on what matters. When they have hope, you filled the petrol tank and they're off to the races. So I have hope in the people. I have faith in people to do the right thing.
There's so much gaslighting, Ellis, that goes on. There's so much misinformation that goes on out there. And we had a panel today, just so you know, at There was a left forum in New York City today. Pavlina Cherneva was there in a UBI versus JG panel.
Yeah.
And the UBI folks, the entire time, sat there in an ideological bubble. They did not talk about the realities that back up these things. They just sat there and moralized about what should be. This is more religion, and this is the stuff that we're looking at here. I mean, I don't want to go down that path too much, but my point I'm making is that there are a lot of folks out there that say some really, really compelling stories for the campfire that don't have anything to do with actual realities, economic realities, and they really don't do what they don't deliver as advertised, if you will. And this is what we're competing against, sadly. I'm telling you right now, Debbie, the same progressive, did a show today talking about how logic is such a small component of politics. 95% of it is emotionalism and this addiction to what they already know, and they don't want to be shaken from that. And these are the concerns I have as we look at state by state by state imposing austerity measures. Then on top of it, pushing for a balanced budget amendment, which will force even more austerity measures. And so much of this comes from the religious right, the Calvinists of the world, the folks that say, well, if I paid for my student loans, God damn it, everybody should have to pay for their student loans. Some bitch. And so this whole idea here is so pervasive, so revolting and perverse, but it's here, it's ever present. And sadly, it's even penetrated some of our own movement because we're talking about a sliding scale, a gradient of progressivism. And you've got the people that quote unquote partner with Indivisible and stuff like that, who are wearing their pussy hats and running around looking for Trump's tax returns, but they still carry the moniker of progressive, even though there's not a damn thing progressive about them. This is who we've got to convince. This is who we've got to wake up. Right. What do you think it'll take to wake them up? I mean, really, what do you think we can do to wake them up, jolt them?
When you have a building falling on you, you get awake pretty goddamn fast. And that's what I mean by the momentum. I mean, you start building a momentum of working class people who give a shit and they need hope and they hear a message of hope. When you reach that critical mass, these people are going to be forced to join, or they're going to get steamrolled because the working man and woman are not going to take this anymore. All right? I really don't have a specific line-by-line plan of, I'm not a political strategist.
Sure.
But like I said, it goes back to faith in the working man and woman. I have it. And I know what they're capable of doing when they're given the tools to fight. And right now, they don't have the tools to fight. And they know the tools don't work. And they have no hope. But they want hope. They want solutions. And for some reason, in all of this dimness and all this despair, they believe hope is still possible. Because once upon a time, their grandfathers and their fathers made excellent money and only one person had to work. Right? There was full employment. There was prosperity. There's no reason why it can't return. And so these people, they want it, and they're tired of the abuse. They're tired of, the national debt. I talked to a guy at an event tonight, as a matter of fact, for this. Oh, the national debt. Like, who gives a shit? Let's talk about the Yankees. And it's exactly what they talked about. I didn't give a shit about the national debt. The reason why is most people just don't give a goddamn about this crap anymore. They're tired of hearing the bullshit. It's the same old repetitive nonsense, fear-mongering nonsense. You can push someone with anxiety disorder and fear-mongering to the edge and then beyond, and they'll live in fear of that. But someone who is perfectly healthy, both mind and body, and has put up with bullshit their whole life, they become sort of immune to bullshit. They're tired of listening to it. And if there's no hope involved, they don't want to hear about it. And MMT provides a message of hope. And when that light bulb goes on, they suddenly realize there's all the hope in the world that they'll ever need. And these are the people that keep coming to people like myself for help understanding these concepts. And when you reach that critical mass, it's all over. These pussy hats and all that crap, they can either get on board because it'll give them something exciting to do, you know. And if they don't get on board, they're going to get freight trained by the working man and woman. I'm telling you, that's it. But as far as the strategy is concerned, I really don't know. I'm not a political strategist. So.
Understood. So as you and I go, you know, you see this happening though all over the world, and I think that as far as Maine goes and other states goes, what is the macroeconomic answer, if you will, to being able to ensure that the states are solvent and that these issues of austerity. Now, mind you, Maine, it didn't matter whether Maine had $1 trillion sitting there. It was all about what they thought was right. Well, I'll be damned if I'm going to let somebody get over on the system. They're going to have to, you know, they got to do their own part. They got to work. They got to lift that bag of ice 50 flights of stairs, even if there's an elevator to take it up to the top. Damn it, they got to do it. They got to do it. How do we change hearts and minds and redefine what work is and redefine what that social safety net looks like? And I mean, is this really, does it really lead back to, all roads lead back to the federal job guarantee? Is that what it comes down to?
Yeah, and I said last night when Joe was doing his excellent presentation, I commented there because some people were questioning the job guarantee and talking about UBI and they weren't understanding. And so what I said, I made a very short statement to clarify what the job guarantee was. And the federal job guarantee proposal is simply put, the federal government being forced to do its job correctly as a currency issuer. That's its job, to provide jobs. Okay? See, this is the whole thing. This is the whole thing. Because the federal government is the currency issuer, its job as a currency issuer is to spend for full employment and then maintain that condition in perpetuity. That's the whole point, okay? And spend for the public purpose. And to do that, it has to expand its deficit targeted directly at full employment. That's the way you do it. Okay, well, there's no better way to do it than a job guarantee. Because why? Now the federal government no longer has to guess. Well, let's measure the unemployment rate. What is it here? Let's find a better way to measure it. No, screw that. It's real simple. You just offer a job, a guaranteed job offer, to anyone who is willing and able to work for a living minimum wage plus benefits. Okay? And suddenly, everyone who does want a job and is able to work will visit their local job guarantee office, and involuntary unemployment will no longer exist. Now, you don't have to start worrying about unemployment numbers anymore. You don't have to worry about a better measure, and the deficit will be automatically managed to maintain levels of full employment in perpetuity. So the federal government will be able to automatically do its damn job. Okay, and it can focus on other policy measures. Okay, well, we've got my basic job that I'm supposed to be doing done and out of the way. Now, let's talk about healthcare. Let's talk about green energy. Let's talk about other things that matter because, you know, we're not dealing with something that has a simple solution. Why is there unemployment? Because the federal government creates it. The market does not control it. So this lard-ass governor, his teabagger governor up there in Maine, where he doesn't seem to understand, you know, shining his shoes and washing his dishes and killing a bear with his notebook, walking barefoot in the fucking snow to school 20 miles there and back. What he's not understanding is the reason why there is unemployment is because the federal government's deficit is too low. It has nothing to do with the market. The market is not in charge. But because he's a teabagger, he really loves business. And he really loves ideology. Obviously, because he's come up with this Calvinistic thinking in his head that there are the deserving poor, and then there's the undeserving poor. And we should just take a noose, strap it around the undeserving poor's head and just, you know, around the neck and just hang them because they're all useless, right? Because if it weren't for these lazy sods, we wouldn't have unemployment. Bullshit. It's got that to do with it. The federal government alone determines the unemployment rate. And it does that through deficit spending, which is why the federal job guarantee is basically the government doing its job efficiently as a currency issuer. It's maintaining full employment in perpetuity so it can get on with the business of doing other things. But here, it's the government's basic job that it should be doing. It is not even doing that. Okay? If it can't even do its basic job correctly, okay, you're going to have major problems. So the federal job guarantee eliminates this problem. How it helps Maine is, simply put, two different ways. One, anyone who needs a real job at a living wage can get off their lazy asses, as he recommends, and go get a job. Well, it's easily accessible. Right there it is, the federal job guarantee office right there. Okay? Well, now, you'll notice, though, that this governor probably doesn't approve. He doesn't approve of that kind of a job. He only wants people working for private corporations and private business because they're the people who pay his fat ass. All right? Okay. He just wants to believe the people are sovereign. He wants to take us back to the Confederate States of America. Okay? States' rights. There. Well, it doesn't fucking work that way when the national government is the only currency issuer. Okay? It's as simple as that. And what I just said here will lead us directly to what these welfare programs really are, because they're in the article you can hear this fat ass talking about crap, totally disingenuous. Oh, well, welfare keeps people lazy and in poverty, and they're just programs to give handouts to, and these welfare programs and SNAP have absolutely nothing to do with helping the poor from a macroeconomic perspective. Okay, it's just insane.
Well, Ellis, I wanted to say something. I want people to get this, because I most of the people that are watching really do pay attention. At least the live viewers do. Mm-hmm. And for them, they go to battle with this stuff and they're trying to work it out. The reality is that the states really are constrained.
Yes, they are
absolutely constrained. So when you see a state that is having financial problems, the only way that they can get out of those financial problems is to either A, slash and burn, or B, the federal government bail their ass out. I mean, there's probably a couple C's and D's in there where they could leverage themselves and go into debt and borrow money and do all sorts of stuff to heap more problems on top. The reality is that it's really austerity or the federal government or something. I mean, because you see places like Texas, slash the shit out of their tax rates, give sweetheart deals to all the businesses, and then the businesses leave Michigan and they leave Buffalo and they leave Flint and they leave everywhere all over the country, and they go down to Texas where they pilfer Texans, and they leave a destitute population where they once were.
Right.
How can the federal government offset this? I mean, you're talking automatic stabilizers.
Yep.
Explain that trade-off here, because I genuinely don't think people really understand, even though they don't understand that dividing line between currency issue, currency user, and automatic stabilizers, even though we've talked about it. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, first of all, what you just described, where a state will slash taxes or do whatever to cause business to leave other states and come down there, that's what you call a job guarantee for business. Okay? Basically, look, you have mobility. You can go where the money is. All right, you can go where the jobs are. Okay, oh, great. When it comes to a currency issuer, currency user, everybody outside of the U.S. federal government is a currency user. And what that means is you're all able to go broke. You can run out of dollars. You can get screwed. You can go bankrupt. It's all over. Okay. But the federal government can never run out of dollars because it issues them. It spends them into existence every time it spends. Okay. So it's the federal government's job to supply the necessary dollars to the economy so that the states themselves will thrive. Speaking of which, I think this has been mentioned on this program numerous times by other people as well. I think even was it Randy Ray or was it Chernobyl mentioned it? States are required to have balanced budgets, as a matter of fact. Well, the reasoning behind this is that if you have the US government as the currency issuer and is doing its job properly, the states need not worry. Okay? They can balance their budget. They can do what needs to be done. All right? Best way to do that is not necessarily the job guarantee. I'm saying it's an important thing. It's like the core. But the point being is that the federal government itself must supply the economy with the dollars. And when it does, and you have a situation of full employment in perpetuity, and you have an economy that is experiencing prosperity that is sustained indefinitely, states are able to collect an income from all that. All the states benefit and they do well. A job guarantee only makes things better for the states because tax increases, tax revenues will increase automatically. They will just increase automatically with full employment. Okay? And the private sectors get enhanced by the job guarantee. All right. So we understand that. We set that aside because Steve wants me to talk about the automatic stabilizers and what they are. Most Western nations that are sovereign currency issuers and not sovereign currency issuers maintain what are called automatic stabilizers. All right? And these are programs like welfare in the US, SNAP, TANF, okay, unemployment insurance. The purpose behind these programs is to be there to create a floor in consumer spending. Because when consumers spend, business derives an income, okay? So if consumers increase their spending persistently, this is an increased demand on business to increase its production. So it has to hire more workers until full employment is achieved, you see. Okay. But the way we manage things is the deficits are always being reduced. We got to watch the federal deficit, get it down there. And so we're not managing the economy properly. Unemployment rises and falls, it fluctuates, you get recessions and whatnot. These automatic stabilizers ensure that a recession doesn't become a depression because it creates a floor in consumer spending. So like when we talk about SNAP, food stamps, it creates a floor in consumer spending on food. So how many people work at Walmart? How many people work at all grocery stores in the nation, okay, that accept SNAP? Okay. Now imagine those, hourly workers that are stocking the shelves and being cashiers and whatnot. Now, imagine, if you will, a recession occurs. All right. These people that are on SNAP, okay, that are receiving food stamps are now spending these dollars buying food. This keeps those people who are cashiers and stockers, it keeps them employed. Okay. So these grocery stores and Walmart can continue to afford to pay these workers and they won't lay them off because demand, there's a certain level of demand that's being maintained. Okay. That's the whole point. Now, that's like the stabilization. What's automatic is the deficit. Okay, when consumer spending falls in a recession, consumers will not be putting a pressure on business to increase its production. It'll actually be decreasing. So as production demand decreases, business income falls. And business will then shed. It will let go of its extra workers, its surplus of workers that it no longer needs to meet production. Unemployment then rises. These people apply for unemployment insurance, welfare, and SNAP, and the federal deficit automatically rises. See? And then they take those newly created dollars, they spend them, and the economy stabilizes. It doesn't collapse into depression, so you've got a floor there. All right. Now that you understand that welfare and SNAP and TANF are automatic stabilizers, when you look at Governor LePage up in Maine, what he's doing is he's taking a chainsaw to the legs of the automatic stabilizers. He's literally cutting the floor out from under consumer spending. He's lowering that down. And while he's doing that, you got to remember what we talked about. Since the federal government is the currency issuer, it also controls the unemployment rate. It's the only entity that both creates unemployment and can eliminate it. Okay? Maine can do nothing. The market can do nothing. So when he puts a work requirement on people, and all of these people, leave welfare, and welfare is halved. What he's really done is he's halved the floor in consumer spending, so now it's fallen even lower. And on top of that, he's asking people to go out and find jobs that aren't there. Okay. And so the majority of these people are going out and they're competing for low-wage part-time jobs, which are just not enough for them to get by on. And guess what? If they even develop a savings, well, then you don't qualify for full benefits or any at all. So no more welfare for you, no more Medicaid for you, no more anything for you, but you got your nice little cushy low-wage part-time job. Okay. What he's doing is he's literally accelerating the poverty rate in Maine. And when the next recession hits, Maine is going to experience even more pain than the rest of the nation that's not following LePage's nonsense. Okay. So what's important in Maine is that the people need to get that man out of office because he has no idea what he's doing. Okay, he's working on an ideological bent, some kind of Protestant work ethic crap where he believes in pulling up the bootstraps, and he believes that the market creates jobs and it's the job creator and blah, 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 and it provides the jobs, and federal government only gets in the way, blah, blah, blah. All right, and what's going to happen is when the next recession hits, Maine is going to take a bigger and worse hit than some of the states that are doing better right now and have stronger safety nets. Okay? But what I want to get across to people who are watching is that the macroeconomic purpose of SNAP, food stamps, welfare, TANF, unemployment insurance, okay, the macroeconomic purpose is not to help the poor. Okay, what its purpose is like I said, to create a floor in consumer spending. Okay, so that consumer spending can't collapse below that and turn a recession into a depression. Okay, they function as a stabilization mechanism, and the only reason why they are needed is because the federal government doesn't do its job as a currency issuer. Okay, it doesn't expand its deficit for full employment for public purpose. It never does, and as a result, it needs some sort of stabilization mechanism to handle the business cycle to act counter-cyclically, which means that in layman's terms, when the economy takes a nosedive into the toilet, government has to have some kind of program that goes in the opposite direction to push back against it so the entire economy doesn't come collapsing down, So that's what welfare is. And that is what this weirdo governor, who has no brains in his head, is doing. He's literally destroying Maine's economy bit by bit. And you remember Steve read about the connection to Clinton. The truth is pushing these people off welfare is not what's increasing employment and decreasing the unemployment rate. What's happening is something that the federal government is doing, and Maine is being affected by federal macroeconomic policy. It's really that simple to understand. The federal government, like I said in the beginning, sets the fiscal agenda. It doesn't have a budget. It has a fiscal agenda. And when it spends, it sets the agenda for all 50 states. All right? And when it's done spending, that's all the economy gets. So if it's reducing its deficit and it's not doing things properly, remember, during the Clinton administration, private debt expanded enormously. Well, bank credit will act just like a dollar. It's an alternative to a dollar. Okay? You can spend it just like a dollar. So if you've got credit cards and loans going on, consumers are going to be spending. Guess what? There's going to be plenty of low-wage underemployment jobs available for people who are leaving welfare rolls to take, even though they're undesirable. All right? So any jobs that people are finding in Maine are a direct result of federal economic policy, nothing to do with Maine, especially with this guy. He's trying to make it, and his administration's trying to make it sound like because he's killing welfare, all of a sudden the economy is improving. That's Calvinist bullshit.
I
right?
think this is what we can clearly say to him right there, right? We can give him the old hi-ho, fuck you.
Yeah, he's full of shit, all right? Even if he doesn't know it, he's full of shit. This is just not how it works. Maine does not rule the economy. The federal government does. It controls everything. It controls the market. When the U.S. government first came into existence and issued the first dollar, it set the market in motion. It owns the market. It controls the private sector. That's the end of it. And if the government is not spending enough to support full employment and to support a healthy economy, it's not going to happen. There's nothing Maine could do. All right? But when you, like I said, introduce an alternative like Bill Clinton did, where, you let private debt expand to fuel growth, what's going to happen when people cannot take on any more debt? Consumer spending is going to collapse, business is going to lose income, demand is going to fall, unemployment's going to rise, you're going to get a recession. It's really that simple. It's everything to do with what the federal government is doing, nothing to do with what this governor is doing. The only thing he's doing is killing people. He's causing people to suffer. He's increasing poverty in Maine to enormous levels, the frightening level. What he's actually doing is he's doing exactly what the government of the UK did to the people throughout the last 7 years of Tory austerity. He's killing and slashing benefits, and the end result of what they were doing by slashing benefits and killing the NHS and doing all this, they ended up killing people and declaring people fit to work. You remember reading that in that article there in the Atlantic you were reading at the beginning. Oh, well, you're fit to work. Oh, well, you're an able-bodied person, so you don't qualify for it. That's exactly what the fucking Tories did over in the UK in the last 7 years. Telling people who have terminal cancer with less than a month to live that they were fit for work and they had the benefits removed. Gone.
Yeah, I want to jump in that. This is something that I feel so strongly about as we go into this. There are people out there, and I've been getting dinged by the tone police lately. The tone police have been out in spades here, really fighting hard, trying to quell I don't like the way he says things. I don't like his attitude. I don't like his tone. All these things, right? And the reality is that they're not tying together the absolute disparity of the people with economics. They don't allow for that connection to be made. And so they just sit there and they flail about talking about nonsense that doesn't have anything to do with anything. It's a feeling, it's an emotion or whatever. But when we sit there and we tell people, God damn, you are literally killing people with what you're doing. Families are suffering, kids are suffering. And when we say that, there's the tone police. Well, you're certainly too harsh. I don't want to be associated with such harsh language. I'm going to keep myself separated over here because I don't want to be associated with harsh language. Well, the reality is, and I'm just being honest here, I can't be anything but. My take on that really comes down to the old F you, right? It really does. I mean, I really want them to see this meme. It really is. For those tone policers out there, I got a special message for you. Okay? There's your special message. I'm sorry that I offend you. I'm sorry that you don't like people that are activists working in your field of work or your area of expertise, and you feel like maybe we are soiling your credibility or whatever. The fact of the matter is that I'm standing up, Ellis is standing up, we're all standing up for the people who are really suffering. We're not here to write a paper. We're not here to get published. We're not here for any personal accolades. We are literally the struggling, trying to save lives. And that is exactly what the purpose of what we're doing is. I mean, I just am so frustrated by the tone police, Ellis, that it's not even funny. I mean, when you read that story that we just read about what's going on in Maine, and then you look down at Kansas, of all places, Kansas, where Brownback did the exact same thing and worse in many cases, to the point where the schools I mean, I can't even put words to the destitution, but yet we're supposed to be calm.
I don't agree with the calm shit. Okay, so that's where I stop. All right, I get the middle fingers. I do this frequently to professionals. I have high disdain for mainstream economists. The orthodoxy. I have lots of disdain for Krugman. All right. I usually don't show it for average people. All right, but here's what I'm saying. Like I said, if you look at the UK there, because the same thing's happening here. If you look at the UK there, and where they come up with this idea that someone who has terminal cancer and they are dying and they need their benefits, to pay for things whilst they're still alive. Okay, when you go and declare them fit for work, all right, and then you take away all the benefits and they can't work, there's no way they can. They're going to die that much faster. Okay, so the government of the UK under the Tories has killed, over that last 7 years, killed numerous people, thousands, all right? I don't think that I should watch my tone. I don't think I should have to, all right? So I don't think I should watch my attitude, all right? I'll have an attitude and I'll pitch my voice wherever I fucking please. And I'll use whatever language I have to get people who are just as appalled as I am on board with what needs to be done, to rally people around the solutions. If you think that Steve and I are just picking people out of the hat and just attacking people who want to learn, or just attacking people right and left for the fun of it because you don't agree with us, you're mistaken. We're sitting here defending people. We're trying our best to stand between people who are suffering and people who are causing that suffering. And we're asking people to be appalled at what's happening and come on board. And it's obstructionists who Steve is talking about. People that willingly come in there and they hear a message of hope, they hear a message of possibility, and at the same time they hear a progressive message that we're not going to sit down and take this anymore. We're going to stand up and defend those people who cannot defend themselves. And you come in there with your obstructionist crap, claiming to hate the Republicans and claiming to hate the right wing, but yet spouting the same economic nonsense that they do. You can give me a break and fuck off. Okay? Yeah, so then my finger is for you, because you're obstructing. All right? If you want to be helpful, if you care, then listen to what's being said. Get on board with the solutions. Stand up with the solution. Look, let's just assume I said something about the federal job guarantee today on Facebook. It's real simple. You can stand up there, take a bus and spend $200 on a bus to drive you across country or whatever to get you to Washington, D.C. to participate for several hours in a protest demanding Trump's tax returns. Okay? Or you can spend the same amount of time and money invested demanding a federal job guarantee. Which one is more worthwhile? If you say demanding Trump's tax returns, fuck you, you're the problem. Okay? It's real simple. You're an obstructionist. All right? So I don't have to watch me tone. I don't think anyone does, really, at this level, because we're so close to killing neoliberalism. We're so close to its end. It's fighting in its last desperate attempt to stay alive. Okay? People are rejecting it right and left. Why do you want to preserve it? Drive a stake through its heart. Help us. Hey, I don't agree with MMT. I don't like this taxes don't fund spending because it sounds like you're letting the rich off the hook. Not letting the rich off the hook. I'm first going to save people's lives. Once their lives are secured and prosperity emerges, then I'm going to go after the rich and I will demand their hoard. But I need to do this first, you see. People's lives are more important than making the wealthy less wealthy. Okay? Yep. It's not going to do nothing for anyone to make the rich less rich. Yet. But when you have national income being properly distributed back to workership, and you have equity building where workers and the average person seeing their prosperity rise and the national income is falling for the wealthy, then when you attack them with taxes, something magical happens. The rich decide not to be stupid. They're not going to let the government destroy all the dollars that they've collected. They'll reinvest them and hope later on they can get future profits. What are they going to reinvest them in? What do I tell them to? What are you going to tell them to invest in, Ellis? Anything that benefits the public purpose. And maybe you'll make a little money and profit later on down the road. But right now, you're going to let me, brothers and sisters who work hard, have some of that money. Why? So the federal government doesn't have to spend so much. End of story. You will invest or I'll destroy your hoard of dollars. But I'm not going to do that until the people have universal health care, till they have free college, till they have a job guarantee of full employment and a living wage and benefits, and they have full stomachs. I'm not about to do it.
That's right. You know, I'll tell you right now, we've talked about this at length, and I spoke with Stephen Hale the other night as well.
Oh, really?
You know, we were chatting back and forth late at night, and it was, you know, totally around this idea of the orthodox economists crushing the soul of heterodox individuals. But the people within the heterodox world that want to suckle up to the orthodoxy, that shun us, that's a problem too, because the reality is they're getting nowhere without the activist community. They're getting nowhere without the people that are actually trying to get the regular foot soldiers out there to make noise. They're getting nowhere at all if they don't have people willing to pay the price for friggin' dealing with all the crap that comes with this book, this bogus bullshit book that we have to go through every fucking day. These people, like drone armies, come after you one by one by one by one by one, talking about this bullshit. And they don't have to do that because they go ahead and they hide. They cordon themselves off with other like-minded highbrow thinkers. They don't want to associate with the lessers, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And right now, we've got a situation where people lose their jobs. Stephen Hale had a friend who was a really, really great, or is really a great environmental economist. Mm-hmm. This guy understands this stuff like you wouldn't believe, and we're going to try and get him on the show as well. This
I would if I were you.
Squished out. He got squished out of academia because he had something heterodox.
Sure.
And it's just amazing.
But you see, the thing is, he had something heterodox and he wouldn't relent. That's why he got pushed out. You see, he wouldn't relent. Right? You would not bow down. You would not try and work with. No, this is the way it is. Okay, well, you're out. Yeah, and you know, I think Stephen would agree with me on this point that it's critical that we go to the people and we work with the people, because hoping that the orthodoxy, which when we say that we basically mean mainly New Keynesians, hoping that one day New Keynesians are just going to say, okay, well, you guys are right, let's just do it your way. That's going to happen. It's never going to happen. You're not going to. It's going to take hundreds of years. But I can affect change much faster by finding the person over there in England who had a relative who died because the benefits were removed because someone with terminal illness was declared fit for work, or in Maine who's struggling with homelessness. I can go up to that woman who's saying, I don't know where I'm going to do this. I don't know how I'm going to get help or pay the $20 for the clinic. But I go up to her and explain to her how things work, and I'm on her side, she's going to be willing to listen to me. And I get enough of those people, we're going to get a snowball effect to get momentum, and the orthodoxy is going to be pushed out much faster. I think you need to have faith in the people to do what's right, not the professionals. It's the people. One economist is one vote. 100 million average Americans, average British citizens, average Australians are 100 million votes. That's where the change is going to come from. All right, it's not going to come from academia. Academia's already done the work. We've already got it worked out. We're all happy now. Here it is. This is how it works. Great. Now we're going to sell it to the people. If you're going to sit there and play with it in your hallowed halls and your ivory towers, it's not going to do much. Seriously. So, you know, we take it to the people.
Absolutely. You know, and I got to tell you, I think that the reason why you and I get along so well, and I get along so well with Joe, et cetera, is that we recognize that there's only so much academia can do. There's only so much that the highbrow approach can do. There's only so much hey, here's some great head knowledge that you can do. It really is where you see the suffering and you apply the solution and you show clearly, here is proof positive that what we're saying matters, because these people really are suffering. And I mean, I almost did a live stream earlier today, but the kids woke up before I got a chance to do it. But I was going to walk through and show the slats in the windows where I used to look out to see, if anybody was coming to foreclose on my home or take my car out of the driveway or whatever. And I was going to film some of these things and give the narrative about the experiences I had. And mind you, I mean, I'm nobody, right? But I've gone to school, I've done some things. And, for me, I should be the opposite. I should, based on the going word of the day, that everybody, if you just work hard, and great things will happen, right? So I'm white, I'm male, well educated, on and on and on, and yet I couldn't stop struggling. I literally went destitute without my mom helping me for a while, without any of the things that have occurred, like the HAMP program, et cetera. I would literally be destitute and in the streets. I mean, it was that bad. And so when people don't relate this stuff at a personal level, they can sit there from the cheap seats critiquing tone. Well, I don't like their approach. I don't like that approach. And they can take these high and mighty approaches to judging our approach. But I can tell you right now, Ellis, we have affected a huge movement. People don't have to like the approach. All I can say is we've woke an awful lot of people up, and we got to keep doing it day in and day out. We got to hope that force multiplier works with our team out there, because if we don't, then more and more places like Maine are going to happen. And can you imagine when the next progressive president gets in there, or the next progressive gets elected to Congress, and these bozos are out there talking about we got to find tax dollars to fund things? It doesn't matter how good their sensibilities are. We're going to have more of the same shit, because they're using the same establishment playbook to try and dig out, and it does not work. Period.
Yeah. It's the same playbook as the right wing has. It's the same playbook. You're just trying to use it in a different way. You're saying, oh, well, the right wing wants to cut taxes for the rich. We're going to increase taxes for the rich, and everything will be well. Look, macroeconomics isn't that easy. It doesn't work that way. You have to model the currency issuer, okay? And that will be the federal government. So you have to model the federal government as a currency issuer. And all of a sudden, strange things happen, like reality, okay? You start discovering that you've hit upon something that functions for the first time ever in economics history. It works. It actually works, all right? So how does it work? Well, we realize that it's not the money, because it's infinite. The government can create as much as it wants. It could create $72 quadrillion tomorrow if it wants to. That's not the issue. What's the issue? It's enough food. It's enough land to grow food. It's enough machines, buildings, factories, hospitals, doctors, lawyers, nurses, everything you can think of, real resources. If there are, government can spend. It'll create a dollar to buy it. Okay? Who's going to be buying it, though? You and I. People. Because that's the whole point of a monetary economy. You need money to access the real resources. The only way you can get it is if the government is spending it. Not spending your tax dollars. What it's doing is spending dollars into existence so that you can save them. So that you can save them. It doesn't matter if you save them but for 10 seconds in your pocket. You're able to hold on to them until you buy something. Okay? It's real simple. The government starts off the process by buying stuff from the private sector. It determines the price it's going to pay in its own currency because it's the currency issuer. It says, well, no, I won't pay that.
As Warren says, yeah.
It's the price setter. So it sets the price. You want an example? Okay, I'll show you. The job guarantee is an example of the federal government setting the price of labor. Sets the base price of labor. That's what the fixed minimum wage is in the JG. Job guarantee minimum wage, let's say it's going to be $18 an hour. Let's just say, I'm just pulling that number out of the air. Just like over in the European Monetary Union, they pulled the 3% deficit rule out of the hat. I'm pulling this number out. $18 an hour. Okay? Well, when the government says there it is and signs it into law and says the job guarantee minimum wage is $18 an hour, the market has to accept it. Can't do anything about it. That's because the government set the price. Okay? It can set it to whatever it wants. Okay? Sets the price. So when it goes to buy goods and services, it's setting the price. It's buying whatever it wants, determining the price it's going to pay in its own currency. Private sector takes that in exchange for the goods, so they can pay its taxes, and whatever it has left over, it pays workers, it buys stuff for itself, it reinvests for more production and whatnot. And that's how the dollars begin circulating around. And then we, since we have to pay the federal tax, we've got to get a hold of those dollars. So after we're done paying our taxes, if we have to, we may not qualify to pay taxes. We may get lucky. We get to keep what's left over and use that to buy things with. See? Okay. So this tells you this, Steve, when people come at you with this FICA crap. Social Security's insolvent. Well, this is the whole point right here. You get paid $850 every 2 weeks from Walmart, let's say, after taxes. That's after federal taxes, which are unnecessary on someone that doesn't make that much money to begin with. All right? And then you got this thing called FICA, which is the size of a gigantic alligator that comes in there and says chunk, and it takes a huge chunk out of your check. And that's all FICA really is. It's not funding Social Security. It's a gigantic, enormous income tax that is imposed twice a month, bi-weekly, on low-wage workers. What do you want to do that to people for?
Hold the phone there real quick. I just want people to get this real quickly. FICA taxes do not fund Social Security. FICA taxes are deleted. Yeah. So when that money's taken out of your check, it's just money being sucked out of the economy. You realize that, right? Does everybody get this? If you don't get it, you've been sleepwalking.
Yeah, if you don't get that, it's real simple. Ask yourself look at your pay stub, goddammit. Pull out your fucking pay stub and yeah, look, do something that's got something to do with reality. It's easily verifiable, okay? It's real simple. Pull out your last pay stub. Look for the FICA number. Look at how much they removed from FICA, all right? Now add that to your paycheck, all right? That's how much more your paycheck would be, okay? But your paycheck is that much less because the government took it and destroyed it. You can say, oh, well, no, they locked it away in a vault. And then they gave it to an old person. Okay, you're still fucked. You're still short $80, $90, $100, aren't you? All right, great. So what could you have done with the $80, $90, $100? Maybe bought groceries, right? But you can't because you got to have SNAP, right? It's not hard to understand, even with the mainstream logic. Even using the mainstream logic, it is asinine.
Here's the problem, and this is what you're going to face. People have spent their entire lives fighting the dreaded Republicans because the Republicans want to cut taxes. And they have spent their entire life talking about how W bankrupted the nation, spending on unfunded wars and running up the government credit card. They have spent their entire life telling that fucking lie, okay? Now, mind you, you can hate Bush because he's hateable. He did plenty of evil, awful things. But when they stray into the lie zone and they are in bed with the lie and they can no longer get away from the lie, just like they're so busy defending Clinton and his surplus lie and all the other lies that they suckled down based on, Republican versus Democrat, okay? When you tell them that reducing taxes helps the economy, all these knuckle sandwiches here is, hey, that's what Republicans say.
They trickle down.
Libertarians. They must be Republicans. This is the kind of stupidity, though, that is prevalent. They are so locked into their little duopoly-minded bullshit that they don't understand. Now, that doesn't mean all cuts are good cuts. All cuts are advantageous, whatever. But in this particular case, here is something that directly impacts the lowest of the low, the most impoverished people. It would immediately help them. Immediately help them.
Yeah, when you finally realize that FICA, all that is just the federal government taking your dollars that should be yours and taking them away and destroying them, and then just writing them down on a spreadsheet, the numbers it destroyed from you. Okay, this means that it's groceries for you. All right, some people pay, like, let's just say $200 in payroll taxes a month. All right, some people's mortgages are, say, what, $700 a month. Okay, well, if they didn't lose FICA coming out of that, all right, the mortgage payment, they'd have the extra 200 they could apply to their mortgage payment. They could apply it to anything, okay, and they could spend. But you got to think of everybody in the nation as paying FICA, okay? It's big income tax. And this happens bi-weekly now, or if, you work week, get paid by the week, then it's weekly. But imagine how many dollars are taken out of the economy every other week that could be spent by consumers, all right? And when you start thinking about this, and then you tally that up for a whole 12 months, and then finally come to the realization that the government's not taking all these dollars and putting them in a bank account and giving them to old people. It's literally just going in to old people's accounts that have Social Security and just typing numbers into existence. You start wondering, why did the government just destroy that much money for 12 straight months? What was the purpose in that? And the answer goes all the way back to FDR when he said that FICA taxes, the payroll tax, has nothing to do with the economics. It's just political. I did it to cause people to think that they'd have a vested interest because it was their money, and they would protect it from politicians who want to destroy my program. That's it. It's a political game. That's what FICA is. End of story. And so it's a gigantic income tax. It goes bi-weekly on working class people. Okay? And I shudder to think after 12 months how much it is destroyed, how many dollars is destroyed over a 12-month period that could have been spent, and how many jobs would have been added had that consumer spending be allowed. So I'm 100% for the suspension of FICA, not the destruction of FICA, not the elimination of FICA, the suspension of FICA. And the reason why? It's real simple. If inflation should ever, and this is assuming that there's no job guarantee, if inflation should ever rear its ugly head, all Congress has to do, the president, is just reinstate the payroll tax until inflationary pressure is reduced. That's it. Eliminated, attenuated, if you want to call it. So I'm all for getting rid of FICA and letting people keep what they earn and let them spend, because it would be better for everyone in the process in the long run, including Maine, because that's how you add jobs. You don't add jobs by throwing people off the automatic stabilizers. You add jobs by giving people the dollars necessary to spend. Okay.
Very good. So Ellis, I want to just touch this off real quickly. One of my favorite posts you did earlier, right here, you said, no, the U.S. government is not at the mercy of the Federal Reserve. No, the UK government is not at the mercy of the Bank of England. No, the Australian government is not at the mercy of the RBA. The notion of central bank independence is a sham. And sadly, in our midst, as you've experienced, there are many, 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 many people who unfortunately sell this stupid myth and destroy any chance of progress. And talk to me about your tweet here or your post that you did earlier, so that we can close out on this, because this right here is why when we start going down the trail that we just went down, folks lose their brains, they lose their minds. And talk about this for a second.
Yeah, the reason why that post exists is because I get all these comments on a regular basis from people saying that the Federal Reserve or the Bank of England or the RBA uses the Treasury's bonds. Okay, the reason why it collects those bonds is for one of two reasons. Either the governments need to borrow money from banks so they can afford to spend, or the central banks are sucking up these bonds so they can make huge profits. Okay, this has absolutely fuck all to do with reality. This is just imaginary bullshit. The truth of the matter is, each one of these three governments, each one of them, they all issue treasury bonds for one purpose only: to establish, for the government, please understand, for the government to establish and maintain a particular interest rate target. And the reason why the central bank needs the bonds that Treasury issues is because it uses them to drain off excess reserves in order to defend that target interest rate. Okay. Yes, these central banks can pay IOR. Okay. That's great. That's great. Yes, it's possible we could maintain a zero interest rate policy and not issue bonds. But guess what? We don't. So we prefer to use an anachronism called a treasury bond. All right. And basically what a treasury bond is today, as I've said it before in this program, it's the crank handle on a Model T Ford to start the engine, and you put it on the front of a Ferrari. Okay. It's a totally useless thing. It doesn't fund deficit spending. It doesn't do anything but establish and defend a target interest rate that the government wishes to defend. Secondly, the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve is an agency of the US government. The Bank of England is wholly owned by the UK government. The RBA is not independent from the Australian government. There is no central bank independence. Whilst the central banks are allowed to operate monetary policy independent of the government, they're not allowed to conduct fiscal policy independent of the federal government, because they are the federal government, or in the case of the UK, the national government. They're not at the mercy. In other words, what I'm trying to say is, if you're claiming that the US government's at the mercy of the Federal Reserve, you're claiming that the US government is at the mercy of itself. Doesn't make any sense. It's non sequitur. All right. Now, you can believe the Federal Reserve is a private bank all you want, but there's plenty of literature out there proving that The Creature from Jekyll Isle is a book of fiction. Okay, it's all fiction, fantasy, conspiratorial nonsense. And the sooner you get that through your head, the sooner everything's going to be better. And I'll state this also. I saw a comment, and Steve was doing a live stream about the Federal Reserve once, about end the Fed, and somebody was saying, that's not what end the Fed's about. No one's saying we can't have these things and end the Fed at the same time, blah, blah, blah. Look, it's real simple. This guy said, and I remember this one specifically, he said, the way you're saying it, Steve, it implies that you think everything's fine with the Federal Reserve around. All right, here's the truth. The Federal Reserve Board of Governors is filled to the hilt with orthodoxy, with economists who don't know what the hell they're talking about. And in most cases, whenever the president appoints the chairperson of the Board of Governors, that person has no idea how financial markets work, and they literally figure it out after they get the job, and they start working. Okay? All right. So, because the Board of Governors makes stupid decisions, okay, does not mean that the Federal Reserve is Godzilla and it's come to eat humanity. All right? It's just that it's filled up with neoliberals. What do you expect? Okay? So, you can buy in all that conspiracy crap all you want. And you can believe banks create 97% of our dollars. Banks don't create dollars. Okay? They create an IOU that they peg to the dollar. That's a big difference. And you can believe that the Federal Reserve buys up treasury bonds so it can soak the government for interest, but then explain why the friggin' Federal Reserve returns profits to the U.S. Treasury. Someone help me understand. All right, because that's one whacked out business model they got there. So anyway, that's the reason why that post there showed up, because I get tired of listening to people, oh, well, what do you think the Federal Reserve's using? But why do you think the Bank of England's buying up all the gilts? Because they're soaking the government for interest. And who puts the bill? The taxpayer. I have to hear this. Yeah, I hear this nonstop. I heard it for years. On and on and on. It's enough to drive you nuts. because people prefer the 007 Mission Impossible style drama of the conspiracy theory to the real inner workings of central banking operations.
It's shameful. It really is shameful. Ellis, I'm telling you right now, the person that you're talking about, friend of mine, et cetera, I would have liked to have thought that after all the time her and I, actually have worked together, that you would think some of this would rub off. But unfortunately, it hasn't. And there are many people out there that are steeped in conspiracy, don't understand federal banking. They don't understand federal finance. They have no idea what the Bretton Woods Accord was. They have no idea what a sovereign, free-floating, non-peg, non-convertible fiat currency is. And yet they speak as an authority. And that's troubling. That's deeply troubling. So thank you for your explanation.
I don't go into a cardiovascular surgeon's office and begin lecturing with authority on how to do cardiovascular surgery, do I? Okay. But yet you'll see these people, these armchair people, they have absolutely no work. And I'm not saying that work experience, you have to work for the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve to know what you're talking about. I'm not saying that. What I'm just simply saying is they have no work experience at the Federal Reserve. They have no work experience at Treasury. They have no work experience, anything to do with the monetary aspects and the spending aspects of the federal government. Yet, from their armchair and their Miller Lite, after mowing the lawn, after a hard day of working at the plant, they come home and speak with great authority on how the Federal Reserve works. Yet no one will do that to a heart surgeon, will they? Isn't that just wonderful? I just don't understand, This is not opinion. It's not politics. This is not opinion. You need to separate your economics from politics because this has nothing to do with politics, okay? We're talking about reality here. We're not talking about what politics says, okay? Jeez.
All right. Well, Ellis, with that, we are at the way late hour here. Thank you very much for joining again. I mean, honest to God, every time you come on board, brother, it's like exciting, and I appreciate it immensely.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. So with that, folks, I'm Steve Grumbine. We're Real Progressives. Sir Ellis Winningham over here as well. And we thank you for joining us. Have a great night, everyone.